Sorry for where this phone dropped. That was the day. It's April 28th, 2021. And of course, we're going to talk about not only the severe weather threat in the Midwest, but now the Northeast, as now the forecast has shifted to involve more of the Northeast when it comes to severe weather. And we'll also talk about the potentially major flood threat in the Midwest and the next Arctic blast that will impact the Northeast that could bring some snow to the Northeast this weekend. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather icons, and make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather icons. So let's begin by taking a look at the map I made, the threat map I made for the entire eastern half of the United States, and you see that the severe weather has now extended to the Northeast, where you're seeing a lot of the Northeast now under the yellows and the oranges, when before in my previous map it was mostly all green for most of the Northeast. But now the severe weather has shifted to involve more of the Northeast, which means that large hail is certainly possible, maybe 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible, and maybe an isolated tornado. I think it's more likely further south, where the wind shear will be a little bit stronger and there's going to be a little bit more unstable air. However, there's you certainly can't rule out the possibility of maybe an isolated tornado for during this severe weather threat in the Northeast. And you see that even in the Southeast, the severe weather threat will continue for the rest of today, where Texas, including Dallas, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, will all be involved, as well as Missouri and Kansas. However, I think my main concern with this storm will be the flood threat, where I listed that 2 to 4 inches are expected, and it's going to pretty much extend from Texas all the way to Missouri and the Ohio Valley, which is my main concern, because flooding is one of the leading causes of weather-related deaths in the United States, and you do not want to underestimate flooding at all. In terms of what the Storm Prediction Center is saying, it's pretty much mapping my map is pretty much mimicking what the Storm Prediction Center is saying right now, and you see that in the areas of yellow, while the risk is listed as slight. Typically, a slight risk means more of a moderate risk for a lot of Texas and Oklahoma, so you need to keep that in mind. And a lot of Northeast is now, well, a small portion of the Northeast is now involved in the slight risk or moderate risk of severe weather, which includes I'm pretty sure Cleveland, Ohio, Erie, Pennsylvania, and just south of Buffalo is under that threat for severe weather. And you might be wondering why. Well, it's because of just enough of a jet stream dip and just enough cold air behind this trough to induce at least some severe weather and to create an unstable environment for a lot of lift to occur in the atmosphere. And the reason why the computer models are now detecting there's going to be severe weather in the Northeast is, I suspect it's because this trough that's towards the north of it, that's expected to move down to the Northeast and eventually bring much cooler than average temperatures and potentially an snowfall in the Northeast. I believe the computer models are now detecting that trough will move a little bit faster, and what that means is that since this trough or this clipper system is moving a little bit faster, that means that the cold air from Canada will move further southward faster, because this trough is going to pretty much be entrained of that cooler Canadian air and bringing that down towards the Northeast, where the Northeast for today, by the way, is going to experience just very warm temperatures up in the 80s. It's going to feel like summer for a lot of Northeast. Once that cold air entrained in the trough encounters that warm summer-like air in the Northeast, it's going to at least create a moderate risk of severe weather, especially towards the western portions of the Northeast. If we were to take a look at that, you see that later today, you see that we see a lot of lift right around Texas and Missouri, where severe thunderstorms begin arising as this trough moves, as this small trough and the cold air moves further to the south and east. And we see a large line of thunderstorms throughout Oklahoma, Missouri, and the Ohio Valley, which is a main culprit of why this heavy rain threat is such a concern, because it's going to be very elongated and it's gonna stay over the same areas for quite a while the because those steering flows are going to be very weak with this storm. Because the jet stream is still, because while the low pressure is still right around the south, right around Texas and Oklahoma, the jet stream that would steer troughs fast to the east is going to be well to the north. So as a result, the steering flow upon this trough in the south is going to move just very slowly because there's just enough cold air to induce unstable air to create a severe weather threat right around south. However, there isn't, I'd say, enough instability to induce very strong up or extremely strong upper level winds like the jet stream to steer this well off to the east very quickly. So as a result, a lot of these thunderstorms are going to stay over the same areas for a long time, which is one of the main reasons why there's going to be such a big flood threat right around the Midwest and right around the Ohio River Valley as well, which is a main concern. But taking a look at the Northeast, you do see that trough does eventually move further eastward, and we do see a slight dip in the contour lines right here, and that'll be enough to induce at least some lift in the atmosphere right around Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and Ohio to induce some severe weather. As you see, moving forward, you see that trough dips very far south. We do see quite a dip in the jet stream, and it's going to induce convection in this area. If we were to take a look at the convective available potential energy that's going to be available for the atmosphere, over the next day or so, you're going to see that you see that the convective available potential energy eventually spreads to the northeast, where we're seeing readings close to 2,000 joules per kilogram, which isn't something which is very rare to see in the month of April still throughout the Northeast, where you typically won't see readings like this until like the summer, where the summer season is typically the severe weather season for the Northeast, because that's when the atmosphere is in the Northeast is able to hold enough water vapor to really induce very severe thunderstorms, while during the spring the air isn't warm enough to hold a lot of water molecules. So as a result, the severe weather threat in the Northeast during spring is limited, and it's not until the summer we typically see convective available potential energy or CAPE readings like this right around the Northeast. So you guys definitely need to keep in mind of that throughout the Northeast. And you see, of course, the CAPE is also, we're seeing high CAPE readings right around Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. They aren't like insanely high. We certainly have seen CAPE readings higher than this this spring, especially in March with the severe weather outbreaks in the Southeast. However, again, it is enough to induce some severe weather in those areas. So keep a close eye on that throughout the Southeast, Midwest, and the Northeast. In terms of when you should expect these storms to begin forming and developing throughout the United States, you see that for this morning, we do have some isolated thunderstorms, but I don't think they're going to be necessarily severe just yet, because they're during this early in the morning, there isn't enough shortwave radiation from the sun to induce a lot of lift of the air molecules and enough lift in the atmosphere. However, that will increase later today once this trough moves further south, interacts with that warmer air, and we do see a lot of thunderstorm activity throughout Missouri, which do have a chance to be severe. However, the main threat, of course, will be the flooding, where you're going to see just a lot of scattered showers throughout Missouri and southern Illinois, where the thunderstorms are extending over a large span and a large area from eastern Kentucky all the way to Oklahoma. And you see that the thunderstorms begin forming right around the afternoon on Wednesday, and we do see another line form headed into Wednesday evening for a lot of Texas, and a lot of these thunderstorms could be severe, so keep that in mind. And you see for Missouri, the rain just continues on for the whole day, where the rain just won't stop. And into the Northeast, we do see that We do see a little bit of unstable air induce some thunderstorm activity that's extending all through Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and even going closer to New York City. So while it might be very warm and humid tomorrow for a lot of East Coast, including New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, Boston, Massachusetts, you still won't completely want to rule out a chance of a thunder shower because there certainly is that possibility, even if the thunderstorms are very isolated in the Northeast. So do not rule that out, even if tomorrow looks like a very nice day. And you see that moving forward throughout Thursday morning, and you see the rain continues for southwestern Missouri before finally moving just to the south of Missouri, and the area is just impacted by a lot of rain. And we see another line of thunderstorms throughout Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas, but it won't be as severe as the amount of unstable air will subside right around the Thursday timeframe, which is certainly good news that we don't want to see the severe weather threat continue, and we do see the rain continuing on for a lot of the Northeast. But like I said, one of the main worries with this storm will be the rainfall. Where if we were to take a look at the flash flood threat or the flash flood chance risk for a lot of the Midwest, you see that there are areas where there's a moderate risk of severe weather from Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, where you have in this area you have a 20 to 50% chance of experiencing a flash flood type conditions, which is fairly high and just it's close to being around 50%. So when we're talking about a chance between 20 and 50%, while yes, it's less likely than not you will experience a flash flood threat, it's still too high to be comfortable with. Even in the slight category, you do not want to underestimate the chance of flash flooding because it certainly could happen based on how many thunderstorms are going to move through this area and linger over the same area for a very long time. So keep a close eye on that for today, all throughout Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Illinois, and even extending to Indiana and the extreme northern portions of Kentucky, where the flash flood risk is certainly higher than you'd be comfortable with. And in terms of the total rainfall, you see it maps the flash flood risk map very well, where we're seeing the heaviest rain, of course, right around where the risk of flash flooding is the most likely. And you see that there's a large area of 2 to 4 inches of rain. This extends to central Texas, to Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and Illinois, Indiana, and even Ohio could receive over 2 inches of rain from this storm. And you need to keep a close eye on it, especially if you live near a river that's close to overtopping its banks, because chances are if you're going to receive 2 to 4 inches of rain from this storm, it's likely going to flood if your river is already at a relatively high stage, or it doesn't even need to be at an extremely high flood stage. It could maybe be moderate, and let's say you get 2 to 3 inches of rain, that could be enough to overtop. That could be enough for the water to overtop its banks and start flooding communities, which we certainly do not want to see. And remember, all throughout this area, remember when you see a flooded roadway or a flooded area, remember to turn around and don't drown, because typically the water is far deeper than what you could ever imagine and what it looks like. So you do not want to underestimate flooding when you see it on a roadway, because it could save your life if you take the right precaution. But yeah, there's going to be a big flood threat. Severe weather will be likely all throughout the Midwest and the Northeast. So prepare, like I said in my map, prepare for large hail. That will certainly be the threat. 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible, and isolated tornadoes as well. If we were to take a look at um, the wind shear in the atmosphere for tomorrow, for the rest of today, you see that there's a decent amount of upper level winds right around. Well, this isn't the upper levels, this is more like the mid levels. Let's take a look at how the wind shear will be for tomorrow, and I'm taking a look at that. Let's take a look at the wind speed and wind direction at different levels. So in this run, the wind shear isn't that strong. I'd say we do see a slight divergence of we do see a slight variation in the wind direction. I'd say in the mid levels of the atmosphere, but it's mostly the same. But let's take a look at another area. Taking a look at this area, you see that the wind shear is very strong in this area, where the winds on the surface are mainly coming from the north, but the winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere are coming from the west, which is strong enough wind shear to maybe induce tornado threat. So keep that in mind all throughout Texas. Tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds should be expected from these thunderstorms, and flooding will be the main concern out of this. But outside of that, we also need to keep track of what's going to happen after the flood and severe weather threat, because we're going to see, again, like I said, a trough that's going to move through the northern half of the United States, and it's going to interact with this low pressure system. And once it does so, there's going to be strong instability, and that northerly air from Canada is going to have more of a reason to move further southward thanks to this low pressure system. And pretty much it's higher air pressures want to move to lower air pressures, and when it sees this pretty formidable low pressure system further south, all that dense cold air is going to want to move further south along with this low pressure system, and that's going to bring a lot of that cold air from Canada further southward, and we could see some snow on the backside of this low pressure system in the higher elevations, where 1 to 3 inches of snow should be expected from this, and temperature is much colder than average for a lot of the Northeast headed into this weekend, right around Saturday to Sunday. Taking a look at the forecasted snowfall, you see that it isn't a ton of snow. It's mainly 1 to 3 inches. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some localized areas in the extreme higher elevations get 4 to 5. It isn't a ton of snow, but it's at least some snow in the higher elevations. You want to keep that in mind in case you live around those areas, because remember, 1 to 3 inches could still cause some slick road conditions, and you do not want to underestimate it. And also, if you're hoping for that one last snowfall, this could be it for a lot of the interior Northeast. So make sure to enjoy it if you really do enjoy the snow, because it's likely going to be your last for till next fall or winter this year. So make sure to enjoy it the best you could. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. And I hope you guys have a good day.